Lok Sabha elections have been announced. A lot has been said by various opposition leaders on how critical these elections are. BJP has been upbeat about crossing 370 mark in the Lok Sabha polls. How do you see the upcoming poll and why is this election so crucial for Indian democracy?
Well, it is it's an election which has an importance because it's an existential election for the Indian Republic. Whether we are going to maintain a secular democratic character or not. The last 10 years have seen a serious erosion. I would call it, in fact, an assault on the constitutional values and the fundamental pillars of our constitution. And democracy, secular democracy, is one pillar: economic sovereignty, social justice, and federalism. These are the four foundational pillars of our constitution. Each one of them is under an assault. So the elections in that sense is crucial. Are we going to safeguard the character, the secular democratic character of the Indian Republic, or allow that to be further eroded? That is the crucial question. So that is why they are extremely important in the current juncture.
So, sir, how do you see the opposition's position today? The India bloc was formed with like-minded parties to challenge the BJP and the BJP RSS ideology. How far do you think this experiment has succeeded, and with some parties leaving the bloc, has it been a setback?
You see, first of all, you must understand that electoral politics and such adjustments and alliances, they are not arithmetic. They are politics. I mean, it's not that you add up 1, 2 and 2, it becomes 4, or you minus that. So it's not a question of who's leaving, who's coming, etc. The question is on what are the principles on which people are joining. If you want to reduce elections to commerce and to that sort of, trading or horse trading in that sense, that's a different matter. That's not politics. So India bloc was formed with this express intention that there is a need to today safeguard and further strengthen the Indian Constitution, democracy, the human and civil liberties, rights of the people guaranteed by our Constitution, and the most important thing is the equality guaranteed by the Constitution and delivery of justice. These are important, and the parties who have come together, they are committed to that, those who are there with India. And each constituent has been going to the people, and they are, I mean, unfortunately, given the state of large sections of the Indian media, I mean, unfortunately, I don't mean anybody in particular, but given that state, only one side gets the projection. But amongst the people, the India parties are very, very deeply rooted.
So, when you say that the parties are very deeply rooted in amongst the people, so we are looking at Lok Sabha elections are coming in a year that Ram Temple was consecrated. So, what do you think will be the major issue in this polls? Is it issues like Ram Temple, Article 370, or like opposition has been talking about unemployment, inflation? Those are the issues that opposition has been trying to raise. So, how do you see this?
You see, the main issue which predominantly preoccupies the people's concerns is actually their living standard. For the last 10 years, now statistics have shown that there is hardly any improvement in your employment levels. You had the highest levels of employment in the last 45 years now. I mean, your educated unemployment of your youth is a whopping 42%. With the demographic dividend that we have, that was a great advantage for us. But this sort of economic policies have led to only complete destruction, not only of the economy, but people's lives. Real wages have been stagnant. 10 years of no growth in your real incomes means what? Inequalities have widened. So rich have become richer, the poor have become poorer. On the average, the statistics can be shown that you are growing, or fastest growing, whatever it may be, but who's growing fast? What is that? What translates into reality? The top 10%, or let's say now the top 10% only for 57% of your country's income, and the bottom 50%, having something like 22%. This is the main issue before the people. What is the future of our children? What is the future that we are building? And that they try to sway it through polarization, communal polarization, spread of hate and poisonous campaigns, etc. But obviously they are not working. And that is why this desperation of the BJP, going state by state, and the major party there splitting the parties, grossly misusing the ED, CBI and central agencies, and indulging in very, very crass horse trading and with the crass money power. Why are they so desperate? If they are so confident that there's a mandir, we are getting crossing 370, 400, then why are they, in every single state where the opposition is in a strong position, why is that whole concern of splitting those parties, threatening them, intimidating them, and then making them move over to their party? And once they move over, all the cases simply vanish. Otherwise, they'll be jailed. Those who refuse to succumb to them are in jail. Mr. Hemant Soren is in jail. But the moment he would have joined the BJP, would he be? Like you have in other states, all the other leaders who have joined the BJP. So they are betraying their own insecurity. They are not in such sort of a great comfortable position, that's very clear.
So with these ED raids and the arrests that have been done of the opposition leaders, do you think it impacts the opposition in some way?
No, they are dividing the opposition that way. They are destroying democracy. They are virtually, what is the message they are giving to the people? You may elect whomever you want, but it's the BJP that will finally form the government. Is that democracy? That is what they've reduced our Indian democracy to. So this is what people are actually, I'm sure they'll in their hearts reject. And it all depends if there's going to be free and fair election. Level playing field, of course, is not there. With all that electoral bonds and now what? Electoral bonds, electoral funds, PM cares, everywhere they get more than 10,000 crores each. This is by far the costliest election in the world. Surpasses even the US elections in terms of money spent by the ruling party.
So when back to the India bloc, how do you see the progress in seat sharing? It remains stuck in some major states even now. And when is it expected to conclude? And do you think that some time has been lost because of these agreements not being reached?
No, the seat sharing talks take time normally for everybody. Those talks have been going on at the state level. And in many states they have concluded. Many states they have concluded, and many states they are on the verge of being concluded.
So like West Bengal, Bihar?
That will be done. West Bengal in a couple of days it will be done. Bihar maybe by tomorrow it will be done. So let's see. But it will all happen. They're all in the process.
In a positive direction?
Huh?
In a positive direction?
Yes, in a positive direction, where the understanding is to maximize the pooling of anti-BJP vote. And that with that objective, it's moving.
So, talking about that, some concerns have been expressed about how long the elections are, especially in some states. So, do you see any concern there, like for example, West Bengal or Bihar, where there are a lot of phases in the elections?
Yes, it is a matter of concern. Though we recognize and accept that the Constitution gives the entire right, sole right, to the Election Commission on these matters. And they are the only ones who are mandated by the Constitution of India. So they have the right. But we question the wisdom of it. Why? You see, now with such a long election, except for 1952, and those were the birth pangs of India's parliamentary democracy, the first election. So lots of things had to be adjusted. Except for that, this is the longest election you are having. And with all this technology they are talking about, with all this thing. I mean, why? In fact, it should be shortened. On the other hand, it's lengthened. Now, what does it do? It gives an advantage to the ruling party, that they can move, the leaders can move from one to another phase and continue campaigning, whereas earlier you could campaign and then the campaigning stops and then the voting takes place. Now here what happens? That there's polling going on in one phase and campaigning going on in another phase. And what the campaigning, the Prime Minister and the ruling party leaders, what they're speaking in some other places is directly beamed to the places where the polling is going on. Is that not a violation? For 48 hours you say you stop, all propaganda, but then it's clearly violated. So these sort of schedules permit that. Secondly, in states where the BJP is weak, where they don't have enough cadre, phase-wise thing, 7 phases, where you do it, it gives them the opportunity to move the cadre after one phase after another. So all this is inbuilt advantage to the ruling party. That's unfortunate, but there should be a level playing field. It's not there in terms of money power. It's not there, therefore, in terms of advertisements and they reach out to the people. And now, even in terms of physical campaigning, it is not there.
So we've talked about how crucial this election is for democracy, but how crucial is this election for the left? And how do you see the position of CPIM and left overall in these polls?
You see, electorally, the left will definitely improve from the earlier election. But the point is, the crucial thing for the left is not really the question of how many seats you win or not, but how much of the agenda are you setting. And whether you look at even the last 5-year period, on every single issue that the BJP brought, which we consider divisive and which we don't consider is in consonance with our Constitution of India. Article 370, they started with the first one. Then that Article 370, the left was the first to contest. And in fact, I was the first political leader who managed to breach through the Iron Curtain and visit Srinagar with Supreme Court's authority and orders. Then CAA, that entire debate on that nationwide debate and the protests and the challenges in the Supreme Court, the left was in the forefront. And whether it is on the question of electoral bonds, whether it's a question of Bilkis Banu rapists, etc., on each one of them, the left's initiative, and it was setting the agenda, and simultaneously for the entire people's struggles. The historic Kisan struggle, the only thing that made the Prime Minister withdraw from what he said or what he would do. He was forced to withdraw the agri laws. And that entire struggles of the working class against privatization, against the deprivation of their rights. So on all these things, the left has played a major role in setting the agenda, and that is something that will strengthen after these elections.
Still, sir, since it is an election, which would be the states where you see the tally of CPIM going up?
Well, in an election, I can't say that these many seats will win, the rest we won't win. Otherwise, why are we contesting so many?
The states where you are...
Yeah. No, we will improve our position. We'll improve our position. We'll enter into the Lok Sabha from different states, more than what we entered last time. Last time it was Tamil Nadu and Kerala. This time it will be much more than that. And there would be much more of a progress that will be made.
So you're talking about how the left has been setting the agenda over the last 5 years. You have been opposing the BJP on several grounds. So when it comes to electoral bonds, CPIM was one of those who filed the plea in the Supreme Court. and now the details of the bonds are out, though alphanumeric code is still to be revealed. So how do you see the whole progress in this case? And since elections are coming, what kind of impact do you see of the money collected by electoral bond as well as of its scrapping on the upcoming poll?
Really, I wish this had happened earlier. I mean, as soon as they came in 2017, I was still in Parliament. I had opposed the finance bill in 2017. In fact, in an unprecedented manner, the Rajya Sabha normally never amends the finance bill because it's the prerogative of the lower house. But we amended, I proposed amendments, and those amendments were carried in the Rajya Sabha. And they were sent back to the Lok Sabha, but they obviously, because of their majority, they were rejected. I mean, they were not accepted. But precisely what we had anticipated would happen through these electoral bonds is what is now being revealed. I had spoken there then, and I had said that this will be it will be like mafia-style extortion. That can be seen now with this revelations that have come. It's two, that they will be quid pro quo sweetheart deals. That is clearly evident. Three, we said they will be shell companies. They'll be coming, instead of tackling black money or curbing it, you're actually allowing money laundering to be done, whereby you'll allow black money to be converted into white and legitimately be donated. And shell companies means now it has come out, companies have bought electoral bonds multiple times more than what is their annual profits. Where did that money come from? They were being used as shell companies for money laundering. So that has happened. And fourthly, which is a new thing which has been revealed, is that companies that are under the scanner for violating the quality controls and norms for production, particularly drug companies, pharmaceutical companies, they have used the electoral bonds rules to buy their peace and not be prosecuted. And this is dangerous. You're playing with people's health, particularly during the pandemic. The company that was producing the remdesivir, which was so widely used in the COVID pandemic, that spurious drugs, that whole case, no action has been taken against them. They bought electoral bonds. So what is happening to the entire system is that the whole system has been corrupted, in the sense you have legalized political corruption. And that is very clearly emerging. And now with the alphanumerical codes coming out, what the Supreme Court has directed, then more concretely you can link up on all these four aspects. And that is getting proven. So this has turned out to be the worst mega corruption scam in independent India.
But how do you think accountabilities will be fixed, or do you see that happening at all in this case?
So now the BJP is brazenly refusing to provide the list of who are the people who are donated these bonds to them to redeem these bonds. Who are the donors? They would know from the bonds that were received. No. The regional parties have done it. I mean, I would salute parties like the DMK, etc. They've given all the details. But then here, our great ruling party, which talks in terms of corruption-free and all sorts of rhetoric, it's just empty rhetoric, but in actual, their actions have been contributing to the worst form of political corruption in our country. And coupled with this, with the electoral funds that private corporates have set up, a huge part has gone to the BJP, for the ruling party. And then you have the PM Cares, where government orders were used to collect monies from the public sector, from government servants, even from MPs and ex-MPs like me, from your pensions. Through government orders, money was siphoned off. And now they say it's a private fund. So they are not accountable, or they need not be transparent. So all these things, they have really completely, the whole system has been corrupted. And this is not politics. This is absolutely, they're just doing business.
So that now that electoral bonds are scrapped, what alternate do you suggest? What kind of mechanism should be there for political funding?
You see, first of all, political funding, if you want to make it transparent, corporates must fund, but not political parties directly. We have said and we have maintained and we have practiced and we have followed. I'm not just one of the 3 petitioners against these electoral bonds. I'm the only political party. I'm the only political party, and the Supreme Court said, what is your locus standi? You're a political party. The ones have been brought for you. So our counsel argued there, our locus standi is that we are the only political party that refused, that opposed the electoral bond scheme in Parliament. We refused to participate in it or take any electoral bonds. And that is why, we have stood by our position on a principled position. That's why the Supreme Court permitted our petition to be considered. So it is a question of corporates funding our elections, funding our democracy, but it should go to a state fund. And there should be a system of state funding of elections, as it exists in many democracies today. Germany, for instance, you have a very vibrant state funding of elections that takes place. So that should be brought in, and that is what we have said, ban corporate donations to political parties directly. But like you have corporate social responsibility law, you have a law, corporate democratic, funding, something similar to that, and then let the corporates donate to that fund. And let there be a supervision of that fund by a government agency, publicly transparent, and fix up the norms, the rules by which the parties will receive that funds. And many countries follow the practice of what has been their percentage of vote in the previous election. On that basis, it will be distributed. So that is the way it should be if you want a healthy democracy. There are many things that need to be done for our electoral reforms, but that's beyond funding, so I'm not elaborating it here. But we've been stating that publicly, we've stated it in the Parliament, we've moved resolutions, we have been succeeded in establishing committees of the Parliament to suggest such reforms, but they are very sorely needed to actually give some living content to democracy in our country.
We also saw the report on simultaneous elections being presented by the high-level committee recently. The CPIM, of course, opposed it, as did many other opposition parties. How do you see the recommendations, and do you think it will be implemented, or rather it should be implemented?
It should not be implemented, because it is actually completely contradictory and robs Indian democracy of its vitality and character. What do we say? What is our democracy based on? People's mandate? Now, people give a certain number of MLAs or MPs to a certain party. If it gets a majority, it forms the government. If it doesn't get a majority, a coalition forms the government. Now supposing, for some reason or the other, which is perfectly possible, it's happened a number of times in our country, that government loses its majority on the floor of the House. Now that government is no longer legitimate. It doesn't represent the people's mandate. So an illegitimate government cannot and must not continue. Democracy means that you go back to the people to seek a fresh mandate. Now this one nation, one election suggests no, let the government be illegitimate, but let it continue till that period. That is anti-democratic. And that is insulting people's mandate. So that is not acceptable. It's not democratic at all. Number two, the Constitution, you will have to, at least 16 clauses, you will have to be amended. And amendments for what? Supposing now elections are due, let's say, now after 2019, in 22, 23, you'll have elections that are due. Now, what is the proposal? Let those assembly elections be held, and those governments, whichever is formed, let them continue till 2024. That in some place for 1 year, some place for 6 months. And people have the right to vote. The Constitution provides to elect legislators for 5 years. So you violate that. So sum total of it is what? You are foisting virtually a presidential form or a new form of government that is imposed and not elected. So this is something completely unacceptable. I think this is the destruction of India's parliamentary democracy.
And so one last question. When the BJP talks about 370 seats, they're of course hoping to get some seats in the south. Do you see BJP making any dent in states like Tamil Nadu and Kerala?
No. No, not at all. And however much the Prime Minister may labour, it will be like the huge amount of labour and the crass violation of the code of conduct which he did in Karnataka, calling for people to vote in the name of Jai Bajrangbali and all those issues which he raised, mixing of religion. You saw what happened in the assembly elections. Saw what happened in Telangana in the assembly elections. So, I mean, there it won't... these sort of things will not work. The way they can whip up passions, like in the northern states, and sharpen communal polarization, it's just not possible in the societies in the south. So I don't think they'll be of any success. They'll draw a blank.
370 power, does it appear real or...
Now, that depends on how much of a free and fair election this would be. All the doubts about the EVMs, etc., which we have been pleading with the Election Commission to meet a delegation of ours and address the issue of VVPATs and the EVMs, etc. But the Election Commission, sadly, has not really acceded to our request. So there are lots of question marks that come out of it. But free and fair elections also means a level playing field. That is not there, doesn't exist. Even today, you have the misuse of governmental planes, you have the misuse of armed forces helicopters to ferry the Prime Minister and other leaders for political meetings. But the Election Commission doesn't seem to think that these are violations of the moral code. Unfortunate, but they are crass violations that are happening.
Okay, sir. On that note, thank you.
So it all depends. If the Election Commission actually succeeds in holding a free and fair election, then the results will be very, very different from what the BJP propaganda is telling us.
The opposition is very upbeat and positive about it.
If the Election Commission, and we hope in the interest of Indian democracy and in the interest of the Constitution of India, that the Election Commission will live up to its task of discharging this responsibility.
Okay, sir, on that note, thank you so much for talking
Thank you.
to us. Thank you.